Hey there, welcome back to Coding at Home with the Code Hub. Hey there, welcome back to Coding at Home with the Code Hub, Augmented Reality at Home with the Code Hub. I'm Matt with the Code Hub, in case you didn't get that. We're going to work through our lunar lander again a little bit today. I hope you've been enjoying it so far. I've actually enjoyed the conversations it sparked downstairs, as well as some of the little explorations that we've had while we've been looking into some of the cool features of Reality Composer and how we can connect it even to apps and how we wind up building this stuff out as we grow our application a little bit. So today we're going to probably do our last bit on the lunar lander. I'm going to show you a little demo at the end on the Mac of how you might connect your Reality Composer file off to your Reality Composer file. Let me repeat that again. I'm going to show you how to connect your app off to your Reality Composer project and see how you might be able to take advantage of that. We did it at the very tail end of yesterday's session, but yesterday's feed was a little bit shaky, so maybe we'll try it again and see if we can get any better performance today. All right, so with that, let's pop over to Reality Composer and check it out. Let's see where we're at with our project. So I'm going to switch over and we're just going to fire up Reality Composer again. So there we go. We're looking at my genes. That's not great. Okay, cool. So here's our layout. We have our landing pad. Remember, we added that yesterday. We've got our two buttons on the screen. And then if we zoom out, there's our rocket that we're trying to prevent from hitting the ground too fast. So what we're going to do is we are going to, now if we were going to make this a real game, this isn't too tough. If we tap on the screen here, I seem to be missing some of my elements, right? So let's see, to fix that, let's try going out and going back in. All right, so I can't actually stop this. So what I'm going to do is double click the home button. I'm going to swipe up in the app chooser and I'm going to relaunch Reality Composer. I'm going to tap on my lunar lander project again. Okay, cool. Here we are. We're in our edit mode, right? And we've got our properties inspector open, as we can see from this thing in the toolbar here. I'm going to play this just to see what the whole scene looks like right now. So if I hit play, there goes my ship. Now it's blowing up a little bit when it hits the pad because we added some extra behaviors to it. So let's check out what those behaviors are. By stopping this scene, we're going to go up here to behaviors. And we're going to scroll through. This is our list of behaviors. So we have this landed behavior. Let's check that one out. So this is it's got a collide trigger, we can see here. We've got one affected object. The affected object is if we scroll down 2 fingers, remember I'm just tapping with 2 fingers here on the grid to drag the rocket into view. So I can see the rocket, that's highlighted. It's going to collide with one object. If I hit choose on that, I can drag up again. I can see that my landing pad is selected. So when that rocket ship collides with this pad, we're going to run this action sequence. We're just going to emphasize the object. Now we could do other things too. We could add, maybe we want to add a little winner animation. So instead of emphasizing, and we'll change the duration on this thing, we can tweak any of the properties. Excuse me. We can tweak any of the properties of, this is a very professional feed, of our emphasize action by playing around with these sliders, playing around with the motion type, playing around with the style. Now I'm going to add another action because what I want to have happen is a little sign to pop up that says winner at the end. That's my last thing that I want to add. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to hit the plus button to add another object to my scene. There are some cool signs built in. Up here, we're going to use this one here. It's kind of large. So I can tap on it and drag it around. I'm actually going to tweak this a little bit. So to change the properties of this guy, I'm going to tap on this properties item in the toolbar. Let's see, we're going to we can change the width, the height, the pole height. So we're going to actually make this quite a bit shorter. So it's right down near the ground. We're going to change the height of the sign. We're going to change the width of the sign. We have the main color, we have a background color, so we can change the font color. We can change the background color. We can swap the colors. And I can change the text. So let's change the text, and we're just going to say landed. So there we go. We can change the text scale. Now you'll notice that it kind of auto-scaled for me to fit into this box early on. All right, so there's my landed. Now I don't want this to show up unless I've actually landed. So how would we do that? How would we add an object to the scene and not have it visible, but only visible after this collision? Well, we're going to go back to behaviors to define how we want this thing to be displayed. And in fact, we can even kind of put this at a... Maybe put this at a little funky angle. Maybe too much. We'll reset that. We'll just do it maybe at 10. So we're just changing the angle of our sign. So the nice thing about this is I can preview all this stuff while I'm playing around with it. So I can just change the values and say, oh yeah, okay, that was cool. Minus 10, it just changes it on the z-axis. It tilts over 10 degrees. All right, so let's tweak the behavior. And if we wanted, we could add different signs here if we were going to signify something else, like maybe a stop sign or something. So let's hit the behaviors button. Now, what I want this to do is at the very start, I want this to be hidden. So I know that there's a scene start trigger. So let's hit the plus button. And there's a handy start hidden behavior. Let's tap on that. Like we've been doing all along, I'm actually going to rename this to hide sign so that I know exactly what it's doing. So when I see this list of behaviors, I can quickly scan it and say, oh yeah, that's where I hide the sign. If I have a whole list of objects that I want to hide and I want to be able to show and hide them separately, I might do the same thing. I might prefix all of my behaviors with the same verb like this, like hide, boost rocket. If I were boosting something else, I might have something else there. Move right, move left. I might prefix all of my move behaviors with the move word. But here, at scene start, we're going to hide and we're going to pick the affected object. We're going to choose. All right, it's already intelligently picked the one that I just added as the one that it's going to hide straight away. So if we hit play now, I'm going to hit the play button. I hit the AR button, which is not the button I want to hit. So I'm going to hit the AR button again. I'm just going to hit the play button just up here. Okay, cool. So as you can see, when I hit the stop button, the sign will show up again. And when I hit the play button, it's gone. All right, so now we want to go back to this landed mechanism. And there's other types of things, here the way we can hide things. Because this isn't necessarily hiding. It may be visible, and then we're going to make it hidden. So it's got to animate how it hides. But in this case, it's gone from the scene start. And you can play around with the different, if I hit play, I'll see the different animation types. Now the duration is 0 seconds, so that doesn't give it a lot of time to animate. If I hit play now we'll see it scale down over 21 seconds, which I don't know if we want to wait quite that long. So let's hit stop. Let's play it again. There we go. It shrinks out of view. So we'll do that at 0 seconds so that no one sees that hidden thing at all. Okay, so we'll start hidden. Now when we land, in the landed behavior, here, we added emphasize. I'm not a huge fan of that. So I'm going to actually delete that one. And then I'm going to add a new action. And here I can just show. It shows an object with an animation. That sounds exactly like what I want. So now I can go select the affected object. You can see down here that there are none. So I'm going to go tap on the landed object. Now I've got one. We can make it maybe pop into view, give it a couple seconds to get there. We can give it a motion type. So if we hit play now, it'll just appear, it'll just fade in. Let's give it a motion type. We won't have it move from the left. Maybe we'll have it look like it's growing up out of the ground. Let's play that. Okay, not the best, but not too bad. Let's try playing that in a larger scene. Okay, all right, that'll do for now. I'm gonna hit stop. Let's turn on AR and we'll check out the desk. All right, there we go. There's our landed sign because we're still in edit mode, remember. There's my landing pad. My ship is right over there. Now let's hit play and check it out. There goes the landing sign goes away. Oh, we collided and we got our landed sign. Now I tried to use the green button to slow it down, but it didn't work out so well. And the purple button applies massive force. Okay, and now it's just hanging in midair. So there's something messed up with our physics a little bit. But that's our sort of our game so far. So instead of emphasizing something, we're just showing an object now. What we might want to do, and what I saw from the guys downstairs was, let's go up here. Let's turn off AR for a sec. We're going to turn off the behaviors. I really liked the guys downstairs had some dominoes on the ground. So I'm going to add some objects here. So let's see, to build a domino, it's, basically like a cube. I'm going to edit some of these properties. I'm going to zoom in on this guy over here. I'm going to choose the properties inspector to edit it. And then I can change the width. So we're going to make it very narrow. Make the height a bit bigger. Let's see what that actually looks like. Okay, good. It's about the same size as our buttons. That's cool. I like the size of that one, so I can kind of play around with it. We'll make these stand out, so we'll make our dominoes gold for now. Now it's a domino, and so the whole point of these dominoes is to have them fall over, usually. So what we're going to do is we're going to have it participate in physics, and we'll make it a dynamic motion type. And we are going to make these ones out of, maybe we'll have some wooden dominoes. All right, that's cool. So I've got my domino. I'm going to tap on it and drag it over here onto the landing pad. And then what I'm going to do now is create a few of them. So if I were making this a game, I might make it a game where you have obstacles in your way that block you from getting to the landing pad. So what I would do is I'd tap on my domino. I've got the option to duplicate, delete, copy, cut, modify, replace. So I'm going to duplicate this. And it's added over here. I'm going to drop it there. There we go. We can drag all around. I'm just touching with one finger on the grid, and I'm able to kind of move it around. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to duplicate that one. I'm going to bring this one in. Duplicate it again. All right, so there we've added 4 of these. Let's see what our scene looks like. We're going to preview this. Okay, cool. Wow, they stick pretty well to their base. They're not moving too much. Okay, that's not bad. So with that would be a kind of cool way to build up different levels where I have different obstacles that I need to land around. So it's only when I land on this pad that I would get the landed message. Or maybe if I have another message that pops up and says you lose if I hit one of the dominoes. So we can start to add a little bit of game logic in here. So let's see. So now the way you would do that is you could have another scene. So I'm going to go over here. And you see this item here, it looks like there's a sidebar and another window. It basically brings out our scene sidebar. And if I tap on my scene, the highlighted one, if I tap and hold, it's going to give me the option to duplicate it. So I can create another one. And maybe I can have this one. I'll make the first one without any of these. So I'll tap on my dominoes here and delete them. And now when I start having multiple scenes, just like we did with some of the other items, we want to make sure that we name them well. And we'll see why in a second. So we'll call this one the start scene. We'll call this level 2 scene. And you can put spaces or not. It's up to you. Actually, we'll rename this instead of start. We'll leave it as start. So level 2 will have some dominoes in there. So I'm going to add another behavior as I'm tapping around a little bit quick here. But what we're doing is we have our 2 scenes. Our first scene has no dominoes on it and a landing pad and our rocket right over it. If I then go tap on level 2, which I duplicated from the first one, and I did that by I'll go back to the first one. I just tapped and held, and then it kind of pulsed out at me a little bit. And then I got an option to pick cut, copy, duplicate, or delete. So I hit this option. So now that I've renamed this in the properties inspector over here, and I got to that by going to this button at the top of the screen, I renamed my scene to level 2 scene. And this one had the gold dominoes on it. So what I want to do is I want to build a transition from this scene to this scene. So I kind of go up a level in my games. So I'm going to tap on the start scene again. And I'm going to tap on the behaviors, because that's going to determine how we can move forward to the next scene. So we have our medium force option, move right, landed, boost rocket, and hide sign. And I'll look at boost rocket in just a second. So in landed, that's the one where we've kind of won the level. So we show this affected object, this landed. But now we want to transition to the next scene. So let's add a plus another action. So there's a great option here called change scene. So now we can go down here and pick the scene. So I hit choose and it'll show me a list of my scenes. And well, I don't want to change back to the same scene. I want to go to level 2 scene. Let's try playing that. So there we go. We landed. Oh, maybe that happened a little bit quick. I didn't even get to see what happened with the landed sign. So let's go back for a second. I'm going to hit stop. I'm still on my landed behavior. what I can do, and you might have seen it in the action sequence option, I'm going to hit the plus button for action sequence. And if I scroll down, there's an option to wait. So let's add the wait option in there. So I'm going to take this and drag it in just before. And if you look, these are all distinct boxes. There's a little space between each. That means that this one will get run. And then when it's done running, this one will get run. And then when this is done running, this one will get run. If we dragged this on top of any of the others, now they're going to run together. And we don't want that to happen, because if we're waiting and changing the scene at the same time, that's not going to work. So I'm going to tap here and drag apart. You saw there was a little blue line between the two of these, and now they're separate again. So let's have it wait for 5 seconds so that we can enjoy the landed scene. Let's also, after the landed sign is done animating, let's have it look at the camera. So we're going to add this action as well. We'll do it before we wait. So we'll tap on look at camera, drag it over to the other side, and see how the blue bar shows up between show and wait. I want to drop it there so we can see these are some of the properties here. We don't have any affected object yet, so let's choose it. Let's choose that one. So wherever we are, wherever our camera is, that's where the sign is going to rotate to point to. So we'll hit done. So now we've just added a ton of options here. So we have when we collide with the landing pad, we're going to show the sign. The sign is going to look at the camera. Then we're going to wait for about 6 seconds. And then we're going to change scene. Let's play that and see what we have. There we go. We've landed. The sign pops up. Landed points back at us. We wait a couple of seconds. And we're on to the next scene. And this might be a good place to add a button where we actually start the whole scene off. And where we make the ship start moving down, because right now it happens a little too quickly. Maybe you're not ready with your buttons. Okay, so that's kind of cool. That's a decent looking game. Yesterday, if I hit the stop button here, we added some items to our behaviors that are kind of interesting. So if we tap on medium force, we do two things here. So when we tap on the green button, I believe it is. Nope, I lied. Purple button. We add force to the rocket ship of 2.5 kilometers an hour. And then we also have this notify action. If you remember, if I hit the plus button and I scroll way down to the bottom, there's this notify. And it says define a notify action in Xcode. And we gave it an identifier that took from our behavior name. That's going to send a message off to Xcode that will tell Xcode, hey, now your Swift code can do something with this action. We've just told you that we've applied some force. So maybe in the event of a lunar lander game, we want to reduce the amount of fuel you have after you've hit that boost button. Because in all the good lunar lander games, you're trying to manage your fuel and land on the moon at the same time. So we have this message that will get sent off to Xcode that I'm going to show you in a second. And we did the same thing with move right. Well, this used to be called massive force, and we used to send a message to Xcode called massive force. Then we also have this behavior here, boost rocket. And it takes the identifier from the behavior name. We just added the trigger here. I'll show you how we added the trigger. So if I tap on the notification name and I hit delete, and I go to add a trigger by tapping here, I have some options. And the bottom one is this notification. So define a notification trigger in Xcode. So if I tap that, you can see it picked the identifier from the behavior name. I can change that if I want. I can tap in there and change it. So that is saying that Reality Composer is going to wait and listen for a message from Xcode, from our code in Xcode. And Xcode is just the tool that we use to build our apps on macOS. Just like we use Swift Playgrounds for building apps and playing with playgrounds and writing code on the iPad, Xcode is the version of our development environment on the desktop. So what's going to happen is we'll get this boost rocket message, and then we're going to add force to one particular object. And it's going to be 18 kilometers an hour. So if you look, our rocket is highlighted. So I would be able to send this boost rocket message from my code, and Reality Composer will boost the rocket. So let's quickly look at how this looks in AR. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go over to Xcode and we're going to have a look at what this would look like if you were building an app based on this Reality Composer file. So I'm going to turn on AR. There's my desk. There's the landing pad. There's our sign. There's our spaceship. Let's hit plus. Okay, cool. We just fell. There comes our sign and it faces us. That's really handy. Wait a couple seconds. And my God, we're right in the middle of all the dominoes. All right, let's hit stop. Now you saw that the sign went and faced us this way. So let's try hitting play again. And we're going to move this way. You can see that the sign turned to face us again. Maybe I've got to play with the scale a little bit. But not bad. Okay, so let's take a little quick tour back to the desktop. And I'll show you what we've got here on the desktop. So here we go. This is Xcode. So when we move on down the line a little bit, we'll show you a little bit more of Xcode and how to build your own app. It's a really great development environment. I love it. I think it's come a long way, and you know, the more you use it, the more familiar you get with it, you'll see how incredibly powerful this is. So right now I'm just highlighting my project information. There's a whole bunch of stuff there that we won't go into now. But you can see over here in my project navigator, I've got some Swift files. I've got an RC project, and if I tap on that, we're going to see something that looks a little bit familiar. There's a button here that says Open in Reality Composer, but I've got an older version of my Reality Composer project. I've got my rocket ship, I've got my 2 buttons and everything, and I can open it up in Reality Composer, and Reality Composer is on the desktop, on the Mac as well as on the iPad, and we'll watch that open up. Here we go. So now this looks very familiar because this is what we've been playing with. And it's even got little markers here telling me how many feet away things are, because the iPad I'm using has got an Irish setting for its locale, and this laptop has got a US setting, so we're using feet. I can also choose to edit on iOS, which maybe is a better option because then I can see it in actual augmented reality. So if I go to viewcontroller.swift, this is where all my code is for my reality project. It looks pretty familiar to some of the stuff that you've done in App at Home. We've got a couple properties. So we've got some extra weird things like this @IB outlet. Got a couple of exclamation points, but it looks relatively familiar. An AR view, which is of type AR view. A boost button, which is of type UI button. And a label, which is UI label. Those are like our components that we used back in the photographic Swift Playgrounds. We've got a variable property here that's a fuel level, and it starts out at 100. We've got a lunar anchor. And then we've got some code here that loads the scene. It sets an action. Here's our medium force action, so we can call a function like we did before in app at home called did apply medium force. This one still has the massive force action. So we can call another function called did apply massive force. We add our anchor to the scene, and then we keep a little reference to the anchor. But if we look down at the did apply medium force, we call this, just like you guys did for your Swift Playgrounds, we call other functions. So we call a function called reduce fuel, and it's got a parameter called by, and we can give it a number. And that'll just take the number, check to see if the fuel level is less than the fuel you're using. And if it is, it'll say we're out of fuel. And if it isn't, it'll just, remember this is the way we decrement a number. So we make it smaller. We take away the amount of used fuel, that number, so 1 or 20, from our fuel level property. And then we display it. We actually tell the label, hey, this is going to be your text. Well, we're out of fuel, or we display the fuel level. We also have a little bit of code here. This is the code where we would give a boost. So if we have a button hooked up on our interface, we can call this method. Just like we had a button, like the shutter button. We have this button connected up much like the shutter button or the front and back button on our camera. And it runs a little bit of code, and it looks a little bit scarier maybe than some of the code we've been working on. But all it does really is it sets the physics mode to something different, this kinematic physics mode instead of dynamic, which is something we can't do from Reality Composer, because this tells the physics body that, hey, I'm going to let the iOS app control the behavior of this object. Don't you worry about it and how it interacts with its physical world. So this is just a little bit of extra code. This took me a little while to go dig down and research up about RealityKit a little bit. I had to go look up the documentation. But that's oftentimes what we have to do, especially when we have a framework that we want to play with or code we want to write that we're not entirely sure what to do with at first. So let's build and run this. So you can see, like, if I hit this play button, it's going to build and run my Lunar Lander app and try to put it on the Code Hub iPad. So let's give that a shot. So it tells me to unlock the Code Hub iPad because, is it using the right one? Here we'll build and run again. And what we'll do is we'll switch over to that one. We'll switch over to the iPad so we can watch it launch. And there we go. Okay, so you can see up in the upper corner here, I've got a fuel button. Whoop, there goes my rocket. I've got a boost button. I can tap this boost button and it will give a little boost to my rocket. A bit late, but there we go. We can see as I press it, let's see, if we press the purple button, we can see the fuel goes down. And we press the green, the rocket goes way up. I don't even know where it is at this stage. You can see the fuel go down. And when we get down to 0, it turns red and says we're out of fuel. So this is just with just a little bit of code. And granted, this is not the easiest. You can see that you could build a kind of interesting app where you could control it with buttons on the screen so they stick there. You can see that boost sticks where I left it instead of being like these buttons and sticking in the physical environment. So I could actually kind of walk around, find other rockets to launch and use this boost button because it's always stuck for me down in this bottom corner of the screen. This code is going to be available, so when we start working with Xcode a little bit more and building apps, I'm going to put this code up online. In fact, I already have. And we're going to talk a little bit about GitHub and getting an account. So when you start writing code and you want to save it and share it with others, that's probably one of the best ways to share and save code. So we'll go into that in a future session. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Tomorrow we're going to go explore some more Reality Composer stuff with one of my favorite functions of Reality Composer. It'll be all iPad based, so there's no worry about having to grab a Mac laptop. When we do the Xcode sessions, you will need a Mac laptop. But that'll be a little bit further down the line when we really get into app development with Swift. I hope you enjoyed this today. I hope the stream was okay. And we'll see you tomorrow for a ton of fun with Reality Composer. See ya.